I'm back again. I'm pretty surprised, honestly. I wasn't really intending to make another video until I got all the awesome positive feedback I did. I really want to thank the Bro Nation Discord in particular. There's some really wonderful, creative, and positive people there. I received a really warm welcome, and it was really inspirational to me, I guess, and that's why I kind of jumped back into Lil Eden head first. That being said, since this series seems to be coming into its own a little bit, I put a lot more time into sorting out the editing and the audio, so I hope this sounds and looks better. If there's anything you think I can improve on, don't be afraid to tell me. I'm still figuring it all out myself, so any help would really be appreciated. I got a little more actual buildings on this episode. I actually rip out one of the big buildings at the entrance and totally reconstruct it, as well as touch up some of the other buildings. I was originally going for a more modernist, contemporary architecture style, but as Little Eden really began developing its own style, I decided it just made sense to redo those buildings. But we'll get more into that later when it comes around. Most of this video is terrain work and foliage, well, terrain painting and foliage, I guess. Most of the actual terrain work I did off camera because it's just so boring and tedious, and I didn't want another 30 minutes of footage to talk over. So, yeah, I cut it out. It wasn't going to be interesting anyway. This here, what you're seeing that I'm making right now, is intended to be a grizzly bear habitat. I was working on it for a long time, much longer than I was anticipating it would take, but they're pretty happy with the foliage and the coverage I gave them, much more than the flamingos were. If I remember correctly, it was totally in the green, which surprised me. Definitely a pleasant surprise. It's not often you put in the amount of foliage I do and the animals are happy with it, but you know, I won't complain. I did get a few crashes right in a row from placing down rocks and blueprints, and at some point I just decided to build off camera for a little while because it was frustrating, I won't lie. So I'm sorry if the footage jumps around a little bit. It's just a matter of me getting used to doing, or it's just a matter of me getting up and doing something else and then coming back to the game whenever I felt like I could get back into the groove. Because I'm doing this terrain work, however, I do want to talk a little bit more about the granite and rocks in this area because they are the main shaping force within the Yosemite Valley, and in exchange also here within Little Eden. Rock falls especially determine a lot of the landscape and environment. They are, as the name suggests, when a big chunk of granite breaks apart from the main mountain or cliffside and tumbles down below, and these rock falls are really the only thing that shapes granite cliffs nowadays, since the other main eroding forests, glaciers, retreated from most of the Yosemite Valley's mountains, or I guess not the valley, just Yosemite's mountains, about 15,000 years ago. Granite is such a crazy tough rock because of the way it's formed, and that's the reason it's so hard to erode. It is an igneous rock, which means that it was formed from extremely high temperatures. However, instead of going from magma to lava to, from magma to lava to rock, granite is formed from the magma itself cooling straight to rock, which means that magma being lava that is still trapped within the earth. So that means that it cooled extremely slowly, forming huge crystals and rocks within it. And it's this slow transformation that really makes granite granite, I guess, if that makes sense. Sorry for rambling. The foliage work itself and the terrain painting I don't think is too interesting, so I hope this kind of gives context for the reason I'm putting rocks where they are. Back on topic though, where was I? Rock falls. These huge chunks of granite that break off and fall can be like over 200 feet across. So you can imagine why they're such a huge part of the landscape. They fall and they snap huge redwoods clean into and dig huge divots into the earth. And when they land and settle, they offer new shelter to animals, new real estate for lichen and mosses. They can disrupt currents in rivers or cut them off entirely. And these rock falls, you could also imagine they are super dangerous, especially within the Yosemite Valley, a major national park with an average of 4 million visitors a year. One unannounced rockfall can cause a catastrophe. There are literally scientists that dedicate their whole lives to predicting rockfalls to prevent this from happening, and it's worked so far. It's almost as complex as predicting earthquakes at this point, because sometimes they break off for no reason, but other times it can be really easy to predict because there was a major rainstorm or something like that can trigger these rockfalls. Even so, the rockfalls are a major part of what shapes the Yosemite Valley, literally and figuratively. The granite mountains and cliffs that surround the valley protect and encase the valley below, allowing for the wildlife and the wilderness that exists there to persist and thrive. The granite itself is what allows Yosemite to exist. After that long-winded explanation, that's why I'm putting giant clumps of rocks everywhere. That's all I really wanted to say. That's the point of that. I guess since I still have time, I can talk a little bit about the grizzly bears. I know the California flag is literally just a picture of a grizzly bear, but the last sighting of a California grizzly bear was, if I get my facts correct, was way back in 1924 or 1925, spotted in Sequoia National Park. Black bears still persist, but the iconic California grizzly bear isn't in California anymore. They're not endangered. They're actually of least concern on the endangerment scale, but they're just not here in California anymore. They've moved up into Canada, and it's still sad seeing the long-term effect that poaching can have, because that's the reason they left California, was because they were hunted and poached until they just moved, I guess. I really want to have grizzlies here in Little Eden because of how closely they are tied to California. They inhabited nearly all of the entire area of California, for the mountainous region that you may think of when you think grizzly bear, all the way down to the beaches. Grizzly bears have been known to eat beached whales, which is crazy. I never even imagined that when I was a kid. I also just wanted a bear in here. I think they're neat. And the other two options are Asian bears. I might end up using the Formosan black bear as a replacement for the Californian black bear, just because I can. But that will likely be at a higher elevation past the annual snow line, which is another topic for another video that I can ramble on for hours again. Anyway, the last topic I really wanted to broach is the building style I'm going for now. Originally, like I said, I had in mind a more contemporary, modernist architecture style. Lots of glass and smooth wood and metal going on. And I'm definitely still drawing inspiration from those kinds of buildings, but I want the focus to be a little more naturalistic. I want to bring in these rough stone walls quite a bit. I think they're called dry stone. I think that's the piece set. I think the texture is really good. Same with the unpainted timber from the Asian set. I really want to use those kinds of pieces to get an architectural style more similar to the kinds of things you'll actually see in the more developed parts of Yosemite National Park. I do still want to keep them serviceable, though. I like the idea of having some big open windows and steel support beams, but those will likely come into later builds. These buildings that I have up now are part of the main entrance area, and I want to keep it rather classical, not in the classic Planet Zoo classical building set, but just not super modernized, I guess. I want them to have the look and feel of a more traditional stone and timber buildings, but later on, for example, I have planned an animal welfare center to house a vet and quarantine, as well as the required power and water treatment plants. I'm not sure why they're required in Sandbox, but I'm putting them in there, and I'll want more of a clean, contemporary, serviceable look to that building with the big windows and stuff. I don't know. I'm just spitballing at this point. I hope I'm making sense. I've just finally gotten into the swing of things, and I'm excited to get this all ironed out, and I have a lot to talk about, and I like talking about rocks. It's getting to that point of the video where I run out of things to say. I am making a custom roof here. I don't do that very often, in all honesty. I was just basing this off of a reference picture, and I was really, in particular, happy with how the roof looked on the building, and I wanted to mimic that look, and I didn't really see anything like this in the pre-made roof pieces, so I just made it myself. I wanted to be a little ambitious today, I guess. I'm pretty happy with with how it turned out. There are those little bits on the side that stick out, but I didn't really want to do anything with it. I'm not the best builder, not super realistic, but I think it turned out pretty well nonetheless. You can see here the rough stone and raw unpainted timber that I was talking about. I think it comes together to form something really nice. And I really like those fence pieces from the Indian set. Those wooden fences. I could use those everywhere. They're so pretty. They have just the coolest texture to them. Super versatile. These two towers on the sides of the windows were really giving me a lot of trouble, just because since they're rotated ever so slightly, they're just barely off of the global grid. And I also did the stupid thing of copying the entire side over before I actually finished it, just because I wanted to see how it looked, and then I just kept messing with the towers and the building, and I kept having to move all the stuff I did over. It wasn't too bad. It was just a little inconvenience, and it's totally my fault. But now I know, and I'll do it better next time. It still turned out okay. Just took a little bit more work, which isn't so bad. I do put some texture up on these windows, or these towers. In my reference picture, they were just plain stone with timber framing, but I had to use a smaller piece. I had to use the plaster walls that weren't gridded because there was no piece that small that had the stone texture that I liked on it. And I just worked with it. I think it ended up pretty good. I'm saying that a lot. It's true. I think it turned out pretty good. I like how it looks. I'm not sure what else to say. I put a little detailing on the back of it, some minor backstage things. Mostly just props. Step ladder. I do make my own custom roof ventilation with what are they called? The art pieces? You'll see that later on, though. It's not too complex. I do like how it looks, though. What else do I talk about? I have those little planters in the front that I do end up putting plants in for a little bit of greenery. Not that there's any lack of greenery in Little Eden. I just like the plants, is all. You can see there, this is a functioning building because for some reason you need to have power and water and vets and all that kind of stuff in sandbox mode. It's not too bad. It's just a little confusing. I wish we didn't have to, but I'm not one to complain. Here you'll see me fiddling. I put the plaster roofing on, and that made a little bit of Z fighting, so I just covered up with more plaster instead of worrying too much about it. And the flat roof and the plain plaster, I think, really helps the other parts of the building stand out. Especially the stone textures and all the little curbing and stuff I did. Speaking of curbing, I learned the idea for putting the buildings up on top of a I just had it. Curbing. I just putting the buildings up, raise them up a little bit, and have the stairs that lead up to it. It just makes the buildings look a little more realistic. Add a little bit of terrain changes. It looks cool. And now with these, my favorite piece in the whole game, the non-gridded plaster pieces, it just makes everything so much easier. They're my favorite piece. I don't think I could build half the things I do without them. Here you'll see me doing a little bit of the backstage stuff. I do put doors in here. The staff members just clip through them, but I thought it made it a little, it eased made me feel better when they clip through it instead of just walking through a door or walking through a wall, I guess. This is the ventilation thing that I was talking about with the art shapes. Not too complex, just triangles, rectangles. We're nearing the end of the time lapse now. I'm running out of things to say, so that's why I'm trailing off quite a bit. I've run out of fun facts for you. I'll have more next video, but I only planned so many. I will leave you with a couple cinematic shots at the end. This is the planting that I did in there. Nettles. My favorite. Oh, I do put a little overhang in here just to prevent it from, protect it from rain and snow. Because I do put snow, as you'll see. And that's it. That's the whole time lapse. I did a big bear exhibit, lots of terrain work, more waterfalls, 2 of them. Every video's got to have one. And I rebuilt a lot of stuff. I'm pretty happy with it. I think I made a lot of progress in just another day since my last video. I hope you'll stick around for the next one. I've gotten a lot of good feedback. Hopefully I'll get some more from this video. We'll see where it goes. Thanks for sticking around.